Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Be Honest with Peter Kozodoy. We are still in launch month, believe it or not. We are going into week 3 of the launch of Honest to Greatness, and today I got two incredible notes from some very high-powered CEOs saying, hey, this is cool. I'm going to read this. And that's why we do what we do, right? Which is great. So thank you to everyone, of course, for all of your support and lovely notes and videos you've been shooting about unboxing the book. That's been really, really special to me. So thank you so much. And today, I have an extremely special guest with me, Miss Michelle Villalobos. Michelle, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. So, Michelle, take 3 to 4 minutes and tell everyone who you are, what you do, and what gets you inspired.
All right. My name is Michelle Villalobos, and I like to pronounce. My mother once caught me pronouncing it the gringo way, and she got very angry at me.
Oops,
She said,
that's
"That's not how we say our name." No, it's okay. But I felt the need to honor my mother. And it's Villalobos. It means House of Wolves. And my business is called the Superstar Activator. And so what I do is I help superstars, which is another way of saying experts, speakers, authors, storytellers, coaches, people who have developed some measure of greatness in some area and want to share that with other people, whether it's through speaking or books or coaching or whatever. And so what I help those people do is align the way they do that with who they really are. So a lot of times business coaches, for example, will look, at a business, at a person, at a superstar and give them amazing strategies to build and grow their business. But those strategies might feel really heavy and not fun if they're not aligned with that person's nature. So my background, undergraduate and, all that work I did in psychology, I have a master's in business. And what I do is I connect those two things and I help people build and grow businesses, missions, visions of things that are aligned with who they really are so that it feels fun. I have a philosophy, work and play every single day so that work feels like play. And while you're playing, your business is working. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I specialize in. And what that looks like in real life is I a lot of times help people build out coaching models, mastermind groups, retreats and seminars and events and group type of business models.
That's so amazing. In fact, in chapter 4, Michelle, I call it honest alignment, because if you're not in honest alignment between who you are and your core values and what you think you want to do in the world, that's what creates misery.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
It's wonderful to hear you say that. And I'm so glad that you're out there helping people do that. So this is a great question for you then. With all the experience you've had in coaching others and in your own life, take us to a time when you've had to be brutally honest with yourself as a leader. What was the situation? What did you do? And what happened next?
So many times.
As we all.
So many times. And one of the biggest breakdowns, failures that I've ever had in my life that led to one of the biggest breakthroughs was in 2014. My personal life, my health, and my business all fell apart in the same 2 to 3 month window. And what had happened with, in hindsight, I now know that it had to fall apart because I was completely out of alignment. I was basically, first of all, I was hustling constantly. So I was just in my total masculine energy all the time. And on top of that, I was selling my time for money. And I was, positioning myself so that people thought that I had all my, together when I really didn't. So there was just so many layers of inauthenticity there. And the universe, decided to give me a big old wake up call. And for me, it took all of those things falling apart, hitting rock bottom, for me to acknowledge that I had built something that didn't align with who I was, what I believed in, what I cared about. And I had to kind of eat humble pie. And I started working with a mentor who was really tough, but not in the tough way like Gary Vee, you got to hustle more. It was more tough like, oh, you're not meditating? Well, you know what? I'm not going to talk to you today then, because you're not doing the inner work that you need to do to create the outcomes that you want to create. Like, you're just talking strategy all the time. So I had to come to terms with the fact that I was trying to fix everything in my life from the outside in instead of from the inside out. And now that's one of the biggest things that I think clients stay with me for. They'll come because they want to work on their business and grow and be a superstar, but they stay because I won't, as one of my mentors, Nani Leah, calls it, I won't stand with them in a lie about what it takes to get what they want. And just strategy is not going to do it.
No, it's not. And I have said on other podcasts I've been on, like when I tell my story about being in my 20s, and if you had told 25-year-old Peter that, he wouldn't have believed you anyway. He had to learn the hard way that everything you're saying, Michelle, is absolutely correct. And I wouldn't have believed it if you had told me. Just like I wouldn't have believed I was going to be the one to write a book about honesty. It's just like stupid, right? If you had known me back then, like I couldn't put those
you and I would have been friends back then, and we would have totally reinforced each other's like stories.
Yep, each other's BS, right? Like we would have talked strategy all day long, and nothing would have happened. And it's just so amazing to hear you talk about it. So when in all the things you've done, your highs and lows, can you give us the one thing, Michelle, that you look back on and you are just to this day so proud of that you were able to achieve, and then take us to the biggest loss that you're willing to share with us?
Well, I would say my greatest achievement has been the culture that I've created in my inner circle group. It started as a business model. It started as a strategy. It was a way to leverage my time and deliver coaching in a way that generated monthly recurring revenue. And that's what I started doing with that coach that I mentioned. And what it has become is my family. We have clients. I have a client that's been with me since the very first retreat I ever did 6 years ago. And I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but I'm really proud of the fact that in this culture, and ridiculous only because people would say, well, business clients are not your family. I'm like, I know that. And what we've created is a culture of people who speak a similar language. We hold similar values. We hold certain standards, but I don't see anywhere else in the world people operating the way we do. And it's a small scale operation still, it's 20 some clients. And I just, I know that growing that is something that would benefit the world, for people to talk the way we talk, to have the level of honesty that we have, to have the level of love and care and truth telling without judgment. Right? Like, if the whole world operated that way, politics would be different,
I say that all the time.
I've cracked the code. I haven't fully scaled it up yet, but it's almost like I've been beta testing it. So that's the thing I'm most proud of so far.
That's great. I say that all the time. Like, imagine if people just didn't react, asked thoughtful questions, asked themselves, how might I be wrong in this situation? Imagine how the world would be.
Well, can I share something really quick?
Please. Yeah.
One of the questions one of the ways we look at everything is, how can I own all of it? How can I own this? Whatever it is, even if it's the most distant thing, how can I own it? Mm-hmm. And that's such an empowering question.
Because we're the only things, honestly, we can change. We can't change any of the other stuff. So what's the point in asking about it? Mm-mm. Yeah. Love it. Michelle, what about a biggest loss you'd like to share with us?
Well, I would say when my personal life fell apart, I was about 30, I guess I was 39 years old when I had the whole big breakdown in 2014. And I was engaged to be married, and it blew up in a very spectacular, dramatic way that it was just very painful, shameful. I felt just, And I realized in that, since that, I realized I was 39 and I was going to do it. I was going to go through with this marriage, even though my inner voice knew it wasn't a right fit, because I felt I'd missed the boat. Mm-hmm. That if I didn't do it now, then when would I? Nobody's going to marry a 40-year-old single woman, or how would I ever have kids? I almost took a really big, huge misstep in order to prove something to myself or prove something to the world, or participate in a system that fundamentally I actually didn't even fully agree with. But I was going to do it because I didn't want to be seen as unlovable or not good enough, and I was scared of being alone. And so that was, a lot of I realized from there that a lot of my decisions came from that place of looking good and not looking right and feeling worthy, instead of focusing on building up the sense of worthiness in me. So the last 6 years have been a huge, huge transformation. And anybody who knows me from before then would attest to it. It's been it took me going all the way to like the dark night of the soul and pretty much losing everything that I had built, everything I believed about myself, and then starting over and from this more connected, aligned, grounded place.
So do you consider that a gift that you had to go through that?
1,000%. It's a blessing. I say it's the biggest blessing of my life.
Mm-hmm. And how do we convince everyone else going through something like that it is actually a great thing?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I got excited.
No, not at all. Please.
I think there are a few ways to get at it, to convince people or to have them see it. Number one is to go backwards and say, what was the most challenging, darkest period of my life? And say, what gifts came of it? And I think most people will find that, especially the farther back you go, the easier it is to see the gifts. Another way to look at it is I don't have this study at my fingertips, but people who went through cancer and survived, the vast majority of them say that they got so much from it that they would go through it again.
Wow. If that's not extremely powerful, then what is? Like, if people would wish that upon themselves again, that's something to stand up and take notice about.
There's a woman who, I saw this video that this filmmaker made, like in Utah, and it was of a woman. I wish I could remember her name. I would tell you if I did. She perfectly abled. She was running around, like jumping from rock to rock with her boyfriend, having a beautiful day out in Utah, hiking and running around, and she accidentally jumped off a cliff. Oof. And she landed, broke everything, and became paralyzed and all sorts of other horrible things. And through that darkest experience and recovery, she still can't walk. She's paralyzed. But she became a speaker. She wrote a book. And in the end of the movie, she says, people ask me, if I knew then what I know now, would I still take that leap? And she says she would.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I'm so glad you told that story, Michelle, because on every, this was book launch year for me. So there's like zombie apocalypse pandemic going on. Like, I'm on podcasts and stuff. And I kept saying, COVID, what a wonderful, listen, it's terrible and people have died and it's awful, right? But also what a wonderful gift. And one of the two of the questions that I encourage everyone to ask is like, is that true? And how do I know? Well, is COVID a good thing? If you think it is, then it's true. And if you don't, then that's true too. And that's up to us. So powerful, Michelle. Thank you so much. Where can people learn more about you and follow along with what you're doing?
Thank you. Well, I have a podcast too, and people can find out about it. It's on iTunes. It's called Awaken Your Inner Superstar. I love it. And my website is superstaractivator.com. I also have a YouTube channel that's very business focused, but business from this place of aligned, grounded centeredness. So I talk about personal branding, speaking, events, coaching. I have, many videos, I think well over 100 at this point on all these topics. So that's a great place to learn more for yourself and at the same time get to know me better if that's something that appeals to you.
I love that. And the root of all of this, Michelle, is alignment. You keep saying it, right?
Yep.
And it's such a big word.
It's so huge. I mean, it encompasses everything. Like, to me, alignment is alignment with who you are, your natural gifts and strengths. It's alignment to your higher purpose. It's alignment to your values and standards, alignment with your self-care and your life force energy cultivation. Like, how do you eat? How do you sleep? Right? It's your alignment with the vision that you have for the world. It's alignment with your beliefs about about the past. And, there's so many areas where that word, it's just like, to me, it kind of encompasses the foundation of living a beautiful life.
I agree. And how does one possibly get aligned if they're not willing to be honest about all those things?
You can't.
Not possible.
Yeah.
Folks, you heard it here. You hear it from every one of the leaders that comes on this show. Like, nothing is possible without being honest. If you are curious about honesty, if you're curious about alignment, all the things that Michelle's talking about, pick up a copy of Honest to Greatness. I know you'll love it. And, we heard Michelle talk about how much power it is. And, she was willing to be honest and vulnerable with us and tell her stories. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
My pleasure, Peter. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And until next time, I'm Peter Kozodoy. Thanks for being honest.